All right, I'd like to welcome everyone this afternoon for our meeting. Thank you for taking time out to be with us today. First order of business is to go ahead and call the meeting to order, which I have. And before we adopt the agenda, we have a new member that's going to take oath to office. So Chris, welcome to our meeting today, and thank you for serving. So I will ask you to please come forward, and we're going to go ahead and get you sworn in, and that way we can get on with the agenda, the rest of the agenda. Ken?
Correction already done.
Carmen will lead us in the. Okay, I'm going to hold that for you.
You place your left hand on the Bible, raise your right hand, and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Chris Davis,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and maintain
that I will support and maintain
the Constitution and laws
the Constitution and laws
of the United States
of the United States
and the Constitution and laws
and the Constitution and laws
of North Carolina,
of North Carolina,
not inconsistent therewith,
not inconsistent therewith,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and that I will faithfully discharge
the duties of my office
the duties of my office
as Authority Director,
as Authority Director,
so help me God.
so help me God.
All right, congratulations. Welcome aboard.
Did they tell you about the $1,000 fee that you had to pay?
Yes, I'm coordinating that fund transfer now.
Well, welcome, Chris. We're excited to have you as part of our team and part of the work that we're doing. So welcome, and thank you for taking time out. You brought some of your members, so you want to introduce them real quick? We'll give you that opportunity. That way we know who's here with you.
Absolutely. To the left here is Tina Wilson. She
Okay.
is our newest general manager at Home 2 Suites by Hilton.
Okay.
She recently moved here from Georgia. With
Welcome.
her family here.
Welcome.
Shelley Plaster, as of Monday, is our newest general manager at Fairfield Inn and Suites,
Okay.
who is in the process of moving here from the Bristol, Tennessee, Virginia area.
Isn't that where Chief was from?
That is.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. We're dragging them all here, aren't we?
Yes, we are.
Well, welcome and thank you for joining us. Okay, our next order of business is the adoption of the agenda that you have before you. If there's no changes, I'll entertain a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Approval of the minutes. You've been emailed the copy of the minutes. If there's no errors or any changes, we'll entertain a motion to adopt the minutes.
I think Ernie had it.
There was a correction, but it's already been made.
Okay.
It was a spelling correction, so. it was
Thank you.
Just a scrivener's error. Move to accept the minutes.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Okay, first order of business is going to be the budget quarterly review, which is on page 17, and the adopted spending plan, which is on page 19. Glenn?
All right, what I wanted to mention to you, first of all, looking at this is a part that's being done now by Gail Mades and Alan Weeks to help us look at the spending, and you're going to get these regular quarterly reports. And you've got the first one several months ago. This is the second one that you've had here. You'll notice the budget for revenue and then what we have collected to date. Administrative cost at about 65% of that, and of course, you know that's a pretty small amount, so it gets pretty front-end loaded on some things. And tourism promotion, you'll see where that's spending at this point. And tourism-related expenditures that are there, it's the green money that we get to use for those other things. And you'll notice the amounts changed in the budget for tourism promotion and related expenditures as a result of the flip there as it was.
Glenn, can we go back to that? Am I confused? You've got the budget of $275 for promotions. We've spent $272, but it says 41.
We're going to get right to it, and actually that number over to the side of 41% should be 8181 that we've actually spent. So 81%. 82.82, excuse me.
I've heard of stretching money. I was hoping that was.
We're going to get right to that here. We're going to explain all that here. So just to give that point there, is that the budget revenue you see, and then we take out the administrative fee, and so net for distribution. And this is where we're going into the pink money, pink for promotion, is that's 33%, which is now 275. When you adopted your first spending plan, that number was the larger number. Then we went to the newer number, and then we made from reserve, bringing up your fund balance of 896,228. And the spending plan then would give you 1.1 million to spend this year on pink money items, promotion items as it was. And Ms. Maids is going to explain to you here why now that's why we're going to talk about that we need to make a slight adjustment here in that from that point. So with your permission, I'll just go ahead and turn it over to Gail at this time.
Did you have a question? Okay, go ahead, Gail.
So on page 23 of your agenda is the budget amendment that's going to be required. And you'll see it matches that 896,000. That's the amount we're going to appropriate from the fund balance to spend in the pink money, as Glenn phrases it.
Pink for promotion.
Yes, sir.
Is
So
there
it's
any
just,
questions? Everybody understand what's being done?
And just for everybody, we adopt a budget, and then we adopt a spending plan. And so the spending plan, we're implementing that, and of course, as you said, the transfer now being timely to do so at this time.
Gail?
that's it. It's just, yeah, to match the spending plan, we need the budget amendment.
I'll ask some questions, yeah.
Please.
So obviously, the last number, you said you had the 1.17 million to spend, which was combined this year's budget and the prior year's savings, or what you didn't spend. You mentioned by the end of the year, but certainly you're going to take that out and run it out over a number of years. You're not going to try.
Oh, no,
All the
no,
way
the
down.
1.1 is not the total fund reserve balance.
Right.
We're only taking 896 out of the fund reserve.
Others
There's more.
of the leftover
Yes.
promotional money?
Yes.
Promotion money.
And what they've done is they keep that accounting so that it came in and it went 2/3, 1/3.
Right.
And so it retains that. And if you recall, and Gail, explain it to, if I go wrong here, is that when you adopted your budget, when we adopted the budget amendment in September that reflected the flip, it's in there in the small print type there. It says that she's going to do a new system of accounting. So everything that comes in for FY18 and on is in a new system of accounting. So it's very clear for the 10 years that the flip is in effect, what the revenues are and how they are to be split.
So the 1.1 is what is intended to be spent
This year. That's correct. That's the spending plan, and it's on page
Right.
19
Okay.
of your document there. That was what you folks adopted on September the 28th as the transitional spending plan. Well, we didn't want to go from 60 miles an hour to, 30 miles an hour. This lets us stay in about a 45-mile-an-hour zone.
Looks like better get busy if you're going to.
When we moved that,
What'd you say, Randy?
I said the year's half over. I don't know you're going to.
Well, there's some items that are big chunks that
Okay.
you're going to deal with today.
Thank you.
when we moved that, is there anything in this that shows us what the balance remaining is? Or is that somewhere else? That's somewhere else.
That is not in here.
Okay, that's fine. I was just curious. Not a big
It
deal.
is in the CAFRA, when the auditor came.
I just wanted to look at it. That's all. No problem. But in other words, we do have more money still
That is correct.
for promotions in the future.
It is a number larger than 896, 628,
I knew that.
substantially.
Thanks.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay.
We need to adopt the
Yep,
budget
need
amendment.
a motion to adopt the budget amendment, moving the 896, 228 from fund balance to the current year tourism promotion expenditures for the FY18 plan.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second?
Any further discussion, questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Can we leave that up there for just a second?
And just to finish the quarterly review, we just wanted to let you see what you had done with your green money. You had, when you adopted the budget, when you adopted the change on the 28th of September, After you did so, you added then the $25,000 for Zing Zoom Children's Museum. So now you have unallocated $250,628 that's in there. And there was some conversation about earmarking that at a point in time to do so as you wish there.
So that's our obligations this particular year.
Yes. And as you'll see in the spending report, we have dispersed only $170,000 because obviously we pay against invoices presented and evidence that that is, as you have demanded it to be, is brick and mortar and things such as that.
Have we received anything from the Corman Memorial yet?
Yes, actually, does this reflect that payment? Does this reflect the payment? Okay. We have a request for payment pending then for them to make the down payment to the sculptor for that. Theirs is going to be pretty much one and done for theirs because it's going to be one payment out going directly to the sculptor for the project.
And what about the visitor center? Where are we at with that?
I don't think that money's been drawn down yet.
Okay, that's just allocated at this point. Okay, thank you. Any questions? All right, thank you. Moving on to item number 7, strategic work. We have our TDA fund. We're going to hear from Winterfest, which is on page 25 of your packet. Susan?
Yes,
Welcome.
thank you, Mr. Chairman, and authority members. It's been a while since it was December, I know. So I'm here to refresh
And a
your
lot of
memory.
snow in between.
A lot of snow. Christmas has come and gone, all the festivities, now it's obviously down to business. So I just wanted to give you an update. You do have the report in front of you, so I won't go over everything. I believe we have a video, but I did want to just hit on a couple of new things we did this year. First off, it was a phenomenal day. We had a fantastic event, beautiful weather. A couple of things we wanted to focus on this year was obviously more partnerships. So we did work with, and Teresa and Biomark are always great to help us along in these efforts, but we worked a little bit closer with the Rotary Club and the Flotilla and getting them some additional promotions and helping them get some more boats. We feel like it's a great fit for both Winterfest and for them, for that flotilla. We think we were successful. They had quite a few boats, and we heard nothing but great responses. We also continue to work with our Crafters Guild and expanding the artisan market. We changed the name this year to try and attract more art and craft vendors from out of the city and out of the county and obviously from other regions. We also added some of those vendors down to the park, down to the festivities on Saturday. We wanted to try and bridge the gap and add more vendors overall, so that was one of the things. And then one of the nice ones also we did this year was we partnered with a tournament director, a USSSA tournament director, and we actually did have a softball tournament. We didn't have a lot of lead time in promoting it, so we hope that moving forward we will be able to promote and even add more teams, but they had 23 teams as it was. Wow. So they had them from South Carolina, Raleigh, and the like, and according to our calculations, about 60 room nights. So we're real happy that we were able to tie in that softball tournament, and they were able to donate lots of their proceeds and lots of toys to the same efforts that we do as well. You know, charity, and that time of year is just a phenomenal time for community effort. So those are just a few of the highlights. Overall, it was a fantastic weekend. Thank you for your continued support. Thank you to the fabulous efforts of Viamark and Glenn's crew for putting on and allowing us to watch wonderful videos that I'm not qualified to even take a picture. So that being said, let's see what they've come up with.
Hit it. There we go.
You know, you talk about growing events, you guys done a really terrific job in taking an event and certainly growing it every year. And that's a testament of the participation, and that's a great job.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate it. It takes a lot of partnerships, and luckily, we have a great community to draw from. So we're just very fortunate, and thanks for all the support. We'll continue on as.
You know, it is a great event, and I would have to echo what she said about the artisan mark. I went out that evening, and I even spent some money. So
Yeah.
She's due for a raise, I can tell.
Well, thank you. I appreciate
Thank you again, Susan.
Susan, who put this together?
it. We did.
This is outstanding. This is what we've always been asking for from everybody. And they've got it broken down as to the room nights and economic impact. I mean, this is
Very well done.
fantastic. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We used a template that actually he did give to us a while back, so we're glad you like it. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay.
And then now continuing on, sir, Teresa Beecham is going to talk a little bit about upcoming events.
Okay.
We have been quite busy. We have several events coming up just in the next 60 days and a lot beyond, but we'll cover these and the rest of them we'll cover in February. Jazz in the City is in 2 weeks, or 10 days or so, and it has come along this year nicely. They changed one of the components of that to be the amateur night, and we focused on out of the market trying to get people in. They came up with the $1,000 winner-take-all cash prize. And as of today, it looks like we're filled for the night, which is wonderful news. So now we just got to sell those tickets for all the people, the audience to participate. But it is February 2nd and 3rd, both nights at the Hilton. If anybody would like to buy tickets, you can go to jazzinthecitync.com and purchase tickets online. We have the Extreme Endurance Challenge coming up at Camp Lejeune on the 10th of February. And then we have, which is part of the Grand Prix series that we fund, or you fund. And then the Engaged Onslow. Poor Lisa. She's done a great job with it. She rebuilt the website. It looks great. Things have really come along. It looks great, and the show it's going to be a success. You already know it's going to be a success. That's 2 days, February 16 and 17. The St. Patty's Challenge, again, is part of the Grand Prix series. That is St. Patrick's Day. And then the Beat the Bridge that you guys have funded is downtown. That is on March 24th. So we're marketing that as well with Facebook.
Thank you.
The other notable events are on page 4, and some of these you're going to hear about from others, but just want to make sure you see that in your agenda packet so that you can go from there.
I wouldn't dare steal Scott's thunder.
Okay, well, that's good.
I just skip right over anything that had the sports commission.
Go ahead. We know thunder in the winter is not a good thing. We'll just tell that as well.
Thank you.
It is now the last part of this that we want to talk about with the situation of the Tourism Promotion Fund. As evidenced by what you had in your spending plan and the quarterly report, some of the items that we've been doing, even though that we have some fund reserve to bring from, they're not sustainable at the level that we're doing. So we want to make some changes and want to look at some ways that we can do something. And so, there's no urgency, but there is some time constraints that we're going to ask you about to help us with. For the current year, you funded 14 projects. One withdrew because of the construction at Sturgeon City and some issues that related to that. And of course, the total funding for everything was $285,000, of which 230 were awards. And we hold some money in reserve should something come up in there as it was. And of the Tourism Promotion Fund room nights, we think this year we could get around 2,800 from this amount of money. The Grand Prix traditionally has produced about 1,200 room nights just in and of itself. Charity Ball, 300, Jamboree, 200, and New Jazz Festival, they're projecting 700. And obviously, I did not have this when I went to the point there from Susan at that moment, but of course, obviously, she's 60. And you'll see in the report that we gave you on page 33, we had reported what, what she had projected in there at 45, so she exceeded that as it was from that. So that's, that takes our numbers up even more as it was to get going. So in FY18, one of the things that you folks had done last year at this time, you identified some guidance and you bought into this guidance that we'd have there. And I'm just going to highlight a couple of things there. And that be direct generators of substantial overnight stays, be sustainable and repeatable, be fiscally sound, and demonstrate benefit from marketing it outside of the region, and reflect on us as positively for a caring community and following our theme of receive a hero's welcome for our visitors. We think this is still good guidance, and we're just now going to look at what more could we do to potentially allow us to abate some of this. One of it is we have done is obviously is we only spend money for marketing. That's all that you support, and just to say it out loud, we fund these events for September 1st through August 31st because we obviously have to make placements for events that are going to happen into the future. So we want those events known to us so we're not here on, at June 30th, trying to hold the breath to try to, put some money out for some event that's coming up the next, week or something to that effect. Now, all money has not been spent. We typically have some left over. And the other part is that the allocation, though, unassisted, it will exceed what we have available to us for promotion allocation. That's the pink money, the raw pink money as it was there.
Glenn, before you go on, I think it's important for particularly people joining us on television to explain to them that the money that when we help an event out, that money that is held is for promotion only, and that we don't give a check, that they send the bills and we expense that out.
That is correct.
So it's not carte blanche that we give $8,000 or $10,000
No.
for whatever they want to use it for that particular event. It's strictly for promotion, bringing heads on beds, and then we actually cut those checks with those invoices.
Absolutely. And toward the end of that, what that funding goes for, we know there's been considerable impact. I mean, clearly we have seen room nights rise as a result of what money you have spent. And we have seen that there's a benefit from having some assistance. Susan reflected on the benefit of Teresa Beecham's professionalism in helping to make placements that are well thought out and have some demonstrated capability in why they're being put there. There is an impact to the TDA staff to this matter as it is, and that's just a statement. Some events have less tourism impact. We're not seeing the overnight stays generate at a substantive amount from them. But some events provide, even though they might not have substantive tourism impact, they have a benefit to tourism promotion. They provide the visual fodder, the quality of life. They provide to us those things that have that give us something to advertise, that give us that come see us because we do this type of activity. And we have created some extraordinarily valuable partnerships as a result of this. We even have a requirement, as you know, that the events must collaborate within themselves and help each other out and can make appearances at each other's events as it was too. As a consideration, we would propose that you might want to consider funding programs that have demonstrated overnight stay generation. In other words, we would not take on any new incubator activities. Whether you choose to continue with some incubator activities is your choice, but we would not try to build something from scratch right now, not at this moment. And that you would reward programs that have demonstrated growth and growth potential, that there's an upward trend that has occurred on this as it was. Now, toward that, we were suggesting that you might want to consider that we make a requirement that they have to put a set aside from profits for events, those that generate profits, and not all these events generate profits. So we want to make sure we say that out loud, and that would be used for marketing in the future. So that if they're making money off the event, and just to use an example, we give them $10,000, it might be that a third of that they would have to set aside for future marketing, and we would obviously decrease the marketing as a result thereof to help in that deal. And there is a thought that we have noticed from some other activities that we've been blessed with having some advice and counsel from others about setting the number of years that we would fund an event. Just saying, out front, from this day forward, we're only going to fund these events for this amount of time or something. Now, as mentioned, there's some outliers in some of the things that are there, and this is not going to, the rain's not going to fall equally on the plain here, and there'll be impact from it. But one of the things that we would like you to consider is to reflect on this. We want to hear your discussion, and at the end of the day, if possible, we'd like you to say, go ahead and take some applications to see what's there, or limit those applications to only events that we have that we're serving now and do something with, or hold and make a decision later. One of our challenges is that the budgetary process would be that we had normally taken applications in January and February rather, and that we would review them in March rather, and that we would bring them to you for action in April, and we adopt our budget in May. So obviously, we have to have a budget by June 30th, but everything else is, mushy in there is what it is. So I wish to hear your thoughts and any questions that the staff can bring our answers can bring for you for your questions.
Thanks, Glenn.
Can you flip back through a couple of slides? I think not that one, the next one.
For this one?
No, maybe it was the previous one, I'm sorry. Yes. What's the definition of reward programs that have demonstrated growth potential? What do you mean by that?
Perhaps a better word might have been saying that to continue some sort of funding for them.
Okay, but
If there's a program that's showing growth, we might not look that they were generating substantive overnight stays at this moment, but because they had done things that the TDA strategic panel had suggested and they're showing upward movement, you might say, okay, they're on a pathway to doing something that's going to generate additional overnight stays.
Well, and the real key ingredient too is going to be budget. Because the budget's changed going into the 18. So it may be to where we do a strategic planning meeting where we look at a budget and then evaluate based on our criteria and utilize that criteria to say, okay, well, these are the top generators, what will we have left if we fund these or continue to fund these? And then at that same meeting, decide what is the time limit? What's the term limit? Is it 3 years? Is it 2 years? Is it 5 years? Or is it indefinite as long as they continue to show growth? I mean, those are decisions that we probably need to have a strategic planning meeting to really back into. Because as it changes, we're not going to have the amount of money to be able to, fund the top tier, middle, and entry level. So we need to put some of that in place. I don't know how y'all feel about that.
we haven't, our overriding criteria is heads on beds. So, that should be the number one thing that we look at. Flip to the last screen, please. That one. Where you say, set a limit for years of funding.
I garnered all these bullets from just conversations that we've had, and they're for you to just put in your mind as to options you might have. I make not advocacy for any of them. I want you to tell me what you'd like to do.
So what this allows you to do, just for conversation, when you set limits for funding, if you have 4 events or any event, you put a time limit on, you may have a top-tiered event that's just going to keep doing well every year. It may not necessarily grow, but it's going to put heads on beds. But it's not going to allow you any funding for any new new events that may have that same opportunity. So do you want, in order to set aside monies for that, you're gonna have to have some sort of limits. If not, you may have 3 events that take up all your money every year, and you're not gonna have any money to have any incubators or potential newcomers in. So it's just 2 schools of thought. It could be that we could leave it the way it is, but we may need to think of a different way of doing it so that we can maybe have some new things that come along that need that boost, that need that, kind of, Susan's program. It started out small and now it's huge,
Well, Glenn, I heard one of the things you mentioned was, like you said, I think you said, you closed the door, basically. That if you hadn't been here before, then.
That's an option.
That's an option, right.
It's
right.
kind of counter to that,
Yeah,
It's-
it is, well, that's true, because I think that it would be kind of tough to limit yourself to only what you've done in the past. It's not going to, leave the door for something new.
That's
But-
why we put the limits, because if you decided to do that, you would then potentially set, a limit as to how long you would fund them for. Then you could open up for new things in the future or something.
Can you tell, this is probably a bad question, but like last year, how many new applicants? Or have you got an idea or a trend?
The new ones obviously was the Sturgis City that's been delayed. The Jacksonville Jazz Festival that may have a name change now. Beat the Bridge was something that we had been associated through the Sports Commission with that got brought up into this side of the world there. They were the new events.
So it was 4.
Yes.
For 1 year.
And
Oh,
we've
and
had-
Final Touch Fashion, thank you.
And we've had new events every year.
So every year you've
Yeah,
had some
we've
new
had
events,
new
but then
events.
have you called any?
Yeah,
Have you ever stopped?
yeah, we've had some
Oh, yeah.
that we've helped and then
Yeah.
didn't help in the following year because they just didn't meet,
Didn't work.
didn't work based on our criteria.
Well, and then some things, you folks set criteria about the professionalism, and we had 2 notable events that dropped out after that was established that you chose not to fund.
Yeah. And the other thing is we have what we call ongoing promotion to stay current with social media, marketing in the various areas that we market, that's going to be an ongoing expense that we don't really want to cut
That
out.
brings to a point, Mr. Chairman, forgive me for interrupting there, that there are some things by not giving the direct promotional money, there's some organic reach that we have through what we're doing that can continue to make people aware of some of these events and activities. That is obviously, and the other part is when you talked about reconciling what other things we're doing in that pink money. When we started, if you remember there, we had a lot of money, and that's why we have some left over. We had not yet implemented our strategic plan, the initiative project. And we're seeing some significant benefits from these fam tours and having, Kristen and Laurette advance our thoughts on that with Susan Dozer and Teresa in this point. We know those seeds are growing. We are seeing the results of that work.
And to me, that's a category in itself.
Yes, but it's got to come out of the pink money.
That's what I'm talking about. So you have that box that should be ongoing and growing because that's an important part of our work. And then you have this other smaller pot of money that you've got to choose events for. So I think we need to probably sit down and have a workshop, for lack of a better word, and really go through the budget, that pink budget money, and make some of these decisions.
I agree with that. This is a big change for us, and we need to make sure that we don't step on our toes in this. For instance, just a quick overview, I'd like to see us, or I would shoot for doing a little of both. Because let's take Winterfest as an example, okay? We all agree it's great. It's been growing every year. What was it, 60 rooms this year? What if we do set a limit, let's say it's 5 years? What happens in year 6 after it's been well-established? It's going to come out of the city budget. That's where it's going to come out of. Nobody's going to stop the
As she
program.
knows, it might not be promoted. It'll be done organically. I mean, it would only be done in that
Somebody's
manner.
got to come up with the money, though. I mean, there's a dollar figure attached to promoting. So I think we need to tiptoe through this very carefully and make sure that we understand what our limitations are and what the limitations would be with whatever we come up with.
Right. To take that one step further, requiring the set aside from profits for marketing may have an effect on setting the limits for years of funding. For example, if you have a huge profit, start making profits, well, maybe you can be weaned off of marketing money or grant money, depending on your amount of set aside. So, we do need to talk about that, because if you have a nice tidy profit, you can help the city by using that to defray the marketing cost. You understand what I'm saying? And that way, you could say, hey, it's been 5 years. We got a nice little fund balance with a little savings. We don't need that much money from the city. See, it all ties in. But you have to look at it on a case-by-case basis, because a lot of these projects are not making that much of a profit. So you have to look at each one individually, and in my opinion, and deal with it that way. But I see these considerations tying into one another.
And I think
So we need discussion.
maybe, instead of thinking of a term limit, is maybe a sloped like reduction, and maybe a planned reduction. Okay, you started out getting 10,000. Next year it's 9,000. And just kind of work them down to see how it impacts, and you're freeing up something for something else.
Absolutely.
Instead of sending them to the edge of a cliff and then go from there, to zero. So,
And toward the end of that, I mean, remember, some of these events, back in 2011, 2012, when we started this, we brought to the table to expose them to the idea of marking it for out-of-market use. They were satisfied with doing events that were just basically local events. And so by the involvement of the TDA and the funding provided them with a broader scope of saying, can you now take this event and turn this into something that would generate overnight stays? That might not have been the original origin of what they had to do with they were going to make this activity happen.
But that was always our intention.
Oh, absolutely, it's our intention,
it's
but it
not-
might not have been their intention when they created that activity,
Yeah,
or
I
that it got handed to them.
understand.
And I think Winterfest is a good example of that. Winterfest was basically a nice event that Recreation is put on and is going to continue to put on in some fashion that's out there. But with TDA activity, and I'm not supposed to put words in your mouth, but she's welcomed activities that would potentially draw people in from outside of our community that would spend the night for this event. And they're still experimenting with that and still having some sort of, eye toward what we could do here that would be of, not Biltmore scale, but something that would have some effect.
All right, well, does everyone agree that if we schedule a workshop and really go through it, that would be the best?
Yes.
Yeah.
Everybody okay with
I
that?
think
Glenn?
consensus.
Okay? We'll make that
Email
happen then.
some dates whenever you can that way we can get you an answer right away, and we can get some policy in place with the new budget.
Absolutely. Well, if I might continue, if you'll let me go on to the next item there. Now you're talking about still in the pink money, and what we're seeing is some real potential for some activities as it was. And these activities are being funded, this is only the third year we put any money at all aside for any strategic initiative. Last year being the first money that we actually set up several categories and started funding some activities as it was there. So Lisa Marabito is here with us, and you've heard from her before, but we want her to talk to you a little bit more about the Military Reunions Project, which again, we think is a sustainable, slap your Ford V8 moment type of activity for Jacksonville tourism here.
Thank you, Glenn. Lisa, thank you.
Hi. Me and Kristen are leaving right after the engaged Onslow the next morning to go to YMRC, which is a military reunion planners conference, and we're meeting with military reunion planners there. we are making our one-sheeters and our sales pitches and everything to go for those 3-day long. And then I come back to, right now, we have 5 military reunions I'm helping out with through October. I have one in March, at the end of March. I have 2 in May, one in July, and one in October. They were all naturally coming, but we're hoping to continue to contribute to them and hope to incentivize them to continue to come back. The one in May has not been here in 6 years. So, and he's planning on coming this year and next year. So it's something that we want to continue. The one in March said that he had interested in coming back each and every other year. So he's going to take that once this one's done to his kind of board, and they will discuss that from there. So we're really hoping to show them a heck of a good time. This is something that, as I've spoke to each military planner that's already naturally coming, they're putting the word out that we are here to help and everything, where before they didn't have as much help. They kind of just, they were their own people with having local connections, and now I'm kind of more of their, they'll have the local connections too, but I'm there to facilitate a lot of the logistics on locally, and I have contacts with the hotels and the catering companies and all of that stuff, and the tours. They're very interested in tours and the buses and the transportation for these tours and stuff like that. So that's how we kind of want to equal a big city. So that's what we're working towards.
Lisa, are you running into any issues coordinating with the base personnel in regards to
I haven't
some of
really, I've spoken a little bit to them. Base personnel, it's training. So we're active base, and things change. So there's certain things I can help facilitate, but I can't help facilitate everything. So the simulators, or a day on base, or working with MCCS with the golf course and the O clubs and stuff like that, I think I could have a good partnership with them, but actually going to where units are, I really haven't even tried to promote that.
I guess what I was asking is, do you have like a point of contact on base that knows what we're doing and is a liaison for this program, or can be a liaison?
I hope to set up one better.
Okay.
It's something that right now in the infant stage that we have the military project, it's a kind of growing, kind of seeing what they want and stuff like that. So I know I have a good relationship with MCCS, and then, but it's the units and stuff like that, and the simulators and stuff. I hope I can grow a relationship with them.
Okay. Thank you.
And as a note, we will indicate that our friends down south at Fort Benning had a similar experience.
Yes.
And it took some time that they could see the benefit. And of course, we do have the Commandant having made that statement that he thinks that having, I forget the exact term he used, but anyway, the military reunions and having these old guys on the base with the young guys was a significant benefit in sharing the lore and legend of the Marine Corps. So we're hoping that he can continue to say those words.
Well, I think, we need to figure out how we can help connect her through conversations on base and get them on board to have a point of contact that when a reunion is interested, that this point of contact could be the base side of that part, to be able to put the tentacles out to help her achieve whatever this group particularly needs, instead of her trying to figure out all this. So if we can reach out and help, please let us know, because I think that's an important part.
I'll jump back to the YMRC. We've been lucky with the membership that we got. We were able to be listed as one of the top reunion destinations, and we got one of our own web pages for the planners to go to, and it has listings of how to get in touch with me and Kristen, how to get here, some of the benefits and the day trips and the special things that we have here only in Onslow, along with photos of the Lejeune Memorial Gardens, things that would be interested to draw military reunions here. So.
Great, thank you. Any questions? Thank you.
Well, the other one that we mentioned, obviously, was about telling our story. And we had an opportunity, many of you know that today, to do that point. And Lorette and Kristen have been an integral part of it, where we today had it was the Safe Harbors American Bus Association activity here. Anyway, you'll see the little goodie bags that we provided for these people. These are tour operators. These are people who make their living putting people on buses and taking them on tours. One of them that I spoke to specializes in taking school-aged children on tours. Another one was only seniors. Another one was someone who just goes to interesting destinations, as it was. And we did talk to some people there that were, that had some military connections, and we were trying to make as much of that connection as possible. We greeted them this morning, and then we put them out, and we took them to one of our assets that we think is most notable, and that's the Lejeune Memorial Gardens, and told them the story about what this community had done and how it affects, and the visitation that we see there and the power of that story. One of the things that we've seen running as a theme throughout tourism now is the power of story and the power of connection to a local place that you can come and experience it and feel how they got where they are, what it is that in their past has caused that to go. So we were tour guides this morning, and we got out there, and this is the lineup at the end there. And of course, this is an interesting group of people that this ABA, and Kristen and Laurette have much more experience with this than I'll ever have, but that they are certainly someone who they have great power in what they do. Not all of them are interested in everything. So, this fellow was, by the way, he was in the Army, and he had been stationed here at Lejeune at a time in the very past, as it was there. So, anything you want to add from that?
It's actually a really big deal that we were able to get them in. American Bus Association, just to give a little background, is actually it's the conference, the trade show for motor coach. Like over 500 tour operators, and they sit down and they are bombarded, I'm not even kidding, by attractions, hotels, DMOs, TDAs, and they just you get a very little short time to kind of tell what you have. So it's fortunate that we had them here for an hour, because they squeezed us in between Wilmington and New Bern. Of course, we would have loved to have had them for 2 days if we could have. But I think it was wonderful we were able to get them in here, and it was because of Amanda Baker with Visit and See that we were able to have them come in. And like Glenn said, some are very interested in it, and I think we hooked some of them, and then others, they were ready to get to the next stop. And that's what you're going to have. It's really what they tailor to and what their audience is. But it was wonderful. Wish it could have been a little warmer. Yes. It was a little cold out there, but that's okay.
So,
Thank you.
but, now, the next thing is that we want to talk to you about coming out of that funding there is the strategic initiative and the visitor experience. And you'll recall when we last spoke of this that you all had set these priorities for what you wanted to fund and work on, and staff proceeded in that direction. Unfortunately, we found some issues that were not going to be easily resolved with the common sign, so that just kind of moved things down. We retained the services. You approved the services of Bazell Design after your AECOM projects were brought forward. Bazell is a company that's well known to a lot of North Carolina municipalities and some far beyond that, of taking designs and putting them in a manner that will get them approved by the NCDOT if they're going to be in right-of-way and such there, and making them very buildable as such there. So what is proposed in the directional signs would be a set of signs that would be placed at various locations to say, this is where you go. This is where you have events that are places that you want to see and to help you in finding those locations as it is there. And these are the two different sizes of signs that would be advanced. Obviously, in a boulevard where the speed limit is higher, the lettering would be larger. And in the downtown area, it would be a smaller size lettering as it is for that point. They are proposing, Buzz Bazell is proposing 46 of the bigger signs and 29 of the smaller signs just in the initial planning. Now, we have a budget for this, but we don't have a budget for what has been done thus far and what's that's going to cost, because we wanted to show this to you and get your reactions and then proceed with the fabrication specifications and such there and get some numbers that we can work with. This is what's proposed to put at Lejeune Memorial Gardens. As many of you know, there is no sign that says Lejeune Memorial Gardens anywhere, and this would actually do that. And it would set it off, and you can see that there's some palisters and some other activity that would be make this a very uniform setting as it is there. And then this is the Beirut Memorial Grove. And as you recall from the AECOM, there were some reaction to some of the signing that was a little modern and such there that some people didn't feel was appropriate. The end result is that it's very difficult with that site out there to put you cannot put a single sign and tell the story. So this would be the first single sign that would be out there, and there might be others that follow on after this that would help tell the story on some of the other roads. It's a triangle-shaped piece of land, and you're going to have a few signs or something. But this would be, 48-inch tall letters, and this should be seen from pretty good distance there and make something that happened there as it was too. And then that's the proposal there. And what we'd like to have today is your reaction. And should you find this positive, that you would allow us to advance to the design stage. Concurrent with that, Bazell would then work on the NCDOT needed permits to put up these signs and to advance that effort. And then thirdly, obviously, one of the retentions that we have with him in his contract, he would go and bid out the project acceptable to city's financial means there of our procedures, and then he would oversee that for us and get it fabricated and get it installed.
Thank you, Glenn. Glenn, could you run those numbers of the signs by me again, please?
Okay, it's on the page with the,
Oh, I'm sorry.
that's okay. It looks like this in there. If you flip to your back page, very back page, 46 and 29.
I see it. Okay, thank you. That seems like a lot.
That's what I was gonna ask too. We showed the map, and I had counted 9 bubbles for
So
some
you
reason. I thought-
multiply that by 2 because there are going to be 2 signs pointing from 2 different directions in that.
Okay.
And we'll get you the other locations. The AECOM document that we did before, he has espoused that was very good in the locations of those signs. And that's where he got this from. And so he's not showing every single location in there at that time.
Obviously,
And we can get you that list. Plus, again, we don't know what this cost yet precisely. And so we will want to merge that with what you're willing to spend.
Yeah, and what we envision is that after it comes back, then we can, based on those numbers, we can start with priority locations and work our way down.
I mean, just at first glance, obviously, these 2 look like
Easy
Big-
peasy, yeah.
Yeah.
big money, but a lot of it too, yeah.
But we still have quite a bit of work to do and to get to the point where we can make the location decisions. What we're looking for today, I guess, is do you like the design? Do you like what you see? And can we proceed to the next steps? Absolutely. We're very eager to move forward, and we believe that this meets the desires of not only this board, but of council as well, for a unified project.
My first reaction is this is fantastic. I mean, the way it's laid out with the Memorial Gardens and the Memorial Grove. Every time I go by the Memorial Grove, I just go, we gotta do something to let people know what it is.
And we're eager to move forward with this, so.
Don't we have money in the budget now?
Yes, sir, you have $300,000. That's what I mentioned to Councilman Thomas
This
there.
comes
that-
out of the green money.
No, this comes out of your pink money.
There's promotion, yeah,
And so
This falls under promotion?
yes.
is it a total of 4 different signs? Is that what I'm reading
What you're
here?
seeing here is 4 designs that would go forward.
Okay,
Yes.
is that the total? Is that what we're
That's-
talking about?
Well, that gets back onto your priorities, that gets you down the list of that.
And different sizes for different locations as well.
Oh, I see.
This
I
looks
see, yeah.
fantastic.
depending on placement. And then once we get that back, we can sort of look at our budget and strategically go down the line with high priority sign locations
Yeah.
first and work our way down. Of course, with the Beirut Memorial Gardens,
Absolutely.
Lejeune Memorial Gardens, and then
Beirut Memorial
Beirut,
Grove.
yeah.
So you're looking for direction from us?
We're looking for direction.
Well, speaking as one person, my direction is go.
Bridge is on.
Yeah. Fantastic.
Well, we've put a lot of work to get to this point, so we're here.
I want to go back to the comments though. What kind of problems did you run into?
Well, we've got some DOT, there's gonna be some
On
changes in
setbacks and
the
things?
setbacks, wetlands, potential realignments. It's just really premature. Now, having said that, we could squeeze a sign in there somewhere now, but in 3 years, we're gonna have to tear it down, and it's just, it's a little premature, and we believe that this is a much higher priority.
Have we had any conversations with the schools?
Not on this subject, no.
Why not? They got 3 schools back there.
They do, and that's about the only way you know the Commons is back there.
Are you talking
It's their
about
little sign.
wayfinding or the?
No, I'm talking about
the
them
big sign?
contributing money to the project for the comments. For the comments.
They gotta go to school, I don't know why.
I'm sorry. Dr. Woodruff?
We did a survey.
Well, no, but, excuse me,
Go
excuse
ahead,
me.
sir.
I understand
Please
that,
join us.
but what do you do when you go to see your children or grandchildren at a site that you've never been to before? You got a high school and a junior high back there where people come from other places to come and see it.
Well, it may be that we can put one of these directional signs in that area first, interim.
Well, I know, but you go down towards the beach and they've got a nice sign telling you the elementary school's there, okay? So it's not like they haven't done some of this before. They've got one out in Gum Branch telling you about the elementary school there. So, I don't know, I just personally think that with those 3 schools sitting back there, we ought to have a discussion with them and see.
In terms of contributing funds toward a
Signage.
sign when we get to that point.
That's
That's
just my
something that
thoughts.
we can entertain. Dr. Woodruff?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No problem. I apologize for interrupting. We did a survey of that corner. You have power lines that run parallel to Western. You have the future right-of-way of Jacksonville Parkway. You have a blue line stream you have to stay so far away from. You have an existing water line, an existing sewer line. And when you put all that together, every one of those factors simply closes in the size of the area you can build. We'll be happy to get that information in your hands for a later discussion. It's not, in my opinion, it's not an issue of how you're going to fund it. It's an issue of physically,
Where you
can
gonna
you
put it?
actually
Yeah.
construct it? And given that limitation, how big is that sign? So what we'll be happy to do for a future meeting is pull out the engineering plans and look at it. Certainly, I think anytime you can get anybody else to help pay for something, it's a good thing. But paying is not really the issue. I think the first issue is
Location.
physically, can it be built? So we'll get that information to you.
Thank you, Richard.
Yes, sir.
So what are your thoughts?
Go.
Do you need a motion, or what do you need,
I think a
consensus?
consensus to go forward would be a
Consensus.
good thing.
John, are you good with that?
Yes.
Okay.
We're just going to tell the designer
To move forward and
yes.
bring us back?
He's already under contract.
Okay.
And so he'll come back with like a price tag for this, price tag for that.
Yes.
Et cetera, down the line.
That is our
Does he know our
design.
budget?
Say again?
Does he know our budget? Does he know what's been appropriated already?
I don't think I have told him what the precise amount was, but that's available now, to be candid with you, since we had to change it.
Well, don't know. I mean, it's public record anyway. Sometimes you're gonna get a budget, you're gonna get a proposal, $299,948.
Okay, you know what to do.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. All right,
On the
Lisa?
strategic review, we were just merely saying that we are setting a date, and we may need to change that based on what you have asked us to do with the discussion about the events and festivals then, to bring in our team, our consultant team, and do a pretty intensive session there on where we go from here. Because they're working on the strategic initiative items and some of those things that we go. Because as you know, we have to start planning now for what things we might buy, those trips and those placements and things such as that for the future. So we wanted to get as early a start as that, but we'll work with you on that part.
Yeah, and I guess, let's try to get it scheduled as soon as we can. That way you can be ahead of schedule. So thank you, Glenn. A lot of information to pass on. Next order of business is status and partnership reports. First order is work by the Jacksonville Onslow Sports Commission. Scott?
Yes, sir. Thank you. So first up, I'll tell you, on February 23rd and 24th, we have the Marine Chevy Quick Stick Lacrosse. That's high school boys and girls. As of this morning, I believe we're up to 24 teams, and we have 10 days left in registration there, so hopefully a few more roll in. Another thing we're doing there on that Saturday morning, there's a free clinic that's open to the community. So younger kids that want to get into lacrosse or just getting into lacrosse, there'll be some college coaches on hand for that. That's at 8 o'clock that morning. So not only the folks participating, but the community can come out and be a part of that. The following weekend, we'll have the first Battle at the Beach, the Bojangles. That'll be the girls version. That's 36 teams. 18 of those are what I would call local teams, and 18 are from about 2 hours or more away. So hopefully that means all 18 will be staying in our hotels. So that is the first weekend in March. On Monday, we'll be releasing to the media the inductees for the Coastal Bank and Trust Sports Hall of Fame. And so you'll be looking for those names next week, and that will be held on Thursday, April 12th. And then the very next evening, we have our Marine Chevy Freedom Fight. That's the second year of the boxing event that was started last year by the staff. So that's in conjunction with the All Marine reunion. So they also have their reunion, their meet and greet, their activities here. And that resulted, I think it was around 60 to 70 room nights last year, and they're actually expecting a little more this year with that. I touched on this a little bit last time, but a new event that we're starting this summer is the Jacksonville Classic Basketball. That's youth basketball, 3rd grade up through 11th and 12th grade. We really believe we'll have a minimum of about 40 teams in year one, and it really could be a lot more, because when one club comes, they bring about anywhere from 5 to 10 teams just from that one club. I can't remember if we talked about this last time. So our football jamboree, Marine Federal, on August 9th and 10th, we're expanding that to a 2-night event this year. It's been one in the past. That allows us not to play till 1 o'clock in the morning. It also gives us some flexibility, potentially add some new teams. We already have 2 or 3 new teams that have never participated on board, and we're reaching out to others. The challenge with this is there's about a 3 or 4 day window that they can scrimmage between putting on pads in the game the next week. And of course, other counties and areas have some scrimmages as well. So just about everybody's doing it on the same night. Next Saturday, Steve Goodson and I are going to North Carolina Gaming event in Goldsboro. It's the e-gaming that's really growing in popularity. They have interest in coming here. I've had a couple of phone conversations with them and one in-person meeting. So we're going to go see the actual event and then start negotiations with them to have an event here possibly this summer. New River Splash, we're continuing to work on that. I had so we're going to partner with the Scenic City Multisport. They do races and events all over the country. And we're going to partner with them to grow that event. He happened to be here when that first big snow hit. So he and I were driving around on that Friday. He couldn't tell what was a field, a parking lot. So he said, I'm going to have to come back later. And so he's going to come back in February, and he's already started mapping out routes. But stand-up paddleboard, looking at a triathlon, just going to make that a whole weekend of activities. And then another thing that I'm really excited to share with you, the Sports Commission in the past has not been able to bid on a lot of regional, national events. Typically when you're bidding on activities like that, they need 14 basketball courts in one location, or 28 soccer fields, all those kind of things. But there are a few sports that we can bid on. So we have submitted a bid for Quidditch. If you don't know what that is, please don't ask. You're running with a broom between your legs, and so. But
It's a sport.
it's a sport.
It's a sport.
Apparently the staff bid in the past, and we were encouraged to bid again. Those bids are due next month. We turned ours in a while back, so we won't hear anything till March. But then the other one, we bid on a Grand Fondo cycling event. That's a 30-mile, 50-mile, 70-mile bike ride. And that was due, we got the bid information December 1st. It was due January 5th with all the holidays and everything else in there. But we got that put together and received a call last week that, I guess for lack of a better term, we're a finalist, and they'll be here to do a site visit at the end of March.
Great.
Now, that bid cycle was for 18, 19, and 20. So, we could get something this year, we could get something in 2020, but that's part of what they'll discuss when they're here in March. So,
That's great.
excited about that.
That's great.
That's all, Mr. Chairman.
So do we have any broom runners around here?
They ain't coming. They can't go deeper than this.
I would be embarrassed to play Quidditch,
Right,
but,
They're gonna be outsiders.
Kristen, can you top that one?
I don't know.
A Quidditch military reunion. How about that?
Could be interesting.
There you go, I like
I don't know, do you want to give those guys brooms? Anyways, as y'all know, we have been working our own program for travel writers. I had to miss the November meeting because I was with a press trip, for a lack of a better term. It is actually the two ladies who run the PR firm that we are contracting with, and they came up and we slammed as much as we could in about 2.5 days, and they were blown away. They've actually never had the opportunity to work with a North Carolina client before, and so the writers have never had an opportunity to come to North Carolina. So it's nice because we're getting some writers who are very enthusiastic about wanting to come. Along with their contract, we also get a travel media press room, and we're getting ready to launch that. Just putting final touches on it. And what it is it will be a press room that writers who need like a quick deadline or something, they can just go to this website. The pictures are already up there. Story ideas are already up there. Some sort of trivia, fast facts are up there, and they can just pull the story. So we do not have to be present. They may not need a quote. They may call if they want some additional information or something, but it's something that's ready for them that they can just pull off of. So that's very exciting to me because sometimes, you can't squeeze in but so many press trips, and you can only reach so many, and the writers may not have time to come. So it's nice that we're providing an easy tool. The easier, the better, so to speak. Of course, Lisa told you we were going to the YMRC, conference.
Let's tell them what that stands for.
Your Military Reunion Connection is what it is. It's kind of the premier military reunion planner. They have about 8, I believe it is, throughout the country, and we're very fortunate that this one's in Myrtle Beach, so thankfully, we only have to go about 2.5 hours. I know that they're gonna have one later in the year in Virginia Beach as well, so it's kind of nice. Myrtle Beach is the bigger one, correct?
Myrtle Beach is supposed to be the biggest
Okay,
one.
it's supposed to be the biggest one, so, but that kind of kicks off conference season for myself, because we'll be going to Visit and See 365 in Winston-Salem at the beginning of March, which is the State Tourism Conference. And then I will be representing Coast Host at the Southern Women's Show in April again. Myself and Donna Hammonds from Swansboro, so a big Onslow County contingency going, which is nice. They estimate about 15,000 people come through in a day. Wow. And it was constant. So it's nice that we have 2 of us who we can kind of push the Southern Coast a little more. And then STS, which is the Southeast Tourism Society, their annual meeting is also in Myrtle Beach, so I get to go back to Myrtle Beach at the end of April. And then that kind of rounds out that. And then just one last little note, we have named our Hospitality Person of the Year, but I don't want to give away their name just yet.
Okay.
The annual meeting's February 8th. Yes, February 8th. Sorry, too many dates to remember. And so we will announce it then. But it's a wonderful, wonderful ambassador for the hospitality industry. So I'm honored to be able to present it to them.
One other thing Kristen did not participate in, but back December 14th, we partnered with the Hilton Garden Inn, and the Courtyard by Marriott, and went to set up in Raleigh for the Association Executives of North Carolina Conference. And these are like your State Employees Credit Union Association, education, literally hundreds of them. And so we all teamed up and went together and trying to get people to bring their conferences to Jacksonville. And the group was very creative. We had, and I wish I'd sent Glenn a picture for you, but we had this huge backdrop with the Freedom Fountain. And we even had one of the concrete benches like you have. And so the thing was, come take a 20-second tour of Jacksonville. And we would sit down, we had the photo booth there, and they would take their picture in front of the Freedom Fountain. And so they had that takeaway with them. So again, like the others are saying, this may be something that hits 19, 20, 21, the way, but I know that both those hoteliers have followed up with everyone that came through, and we got business cards for. So we're keeping our fingers crossed that we'll get some good conferences in this area from that as well.
Wonderful.
Awesome.
Everybody's busy. It's a good thing.
Doing what you're supposed
Teresa,
to
are
do.
you busy?
A little bit. We're keeping busy.
Good reports. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Any questions for any of the presenters?
Did Teresa have a report?
She kind of did.
Gave us one.
I just had one slide to cover.
Just wanted to see how busy you were. Yeah.
Well, thank you again. Great presentations. Next order of business, let's talk about tax collections. Gail, are you going to do this, or Glenn?
Glenn was gonna do this.
I like that. That was smooth.
As you can see on the screen and in your document on page 35, we are actually up 5% over this same time a year ago. And that's a good thing. It's a very good thing. I was having a conversation with our newest director there also about that online has just not been as strong as we've seen it kind of in the past, but it's still up 2% from the previous time, and it represents 2% of the total take that you're doing now, as it was too. So
How much, 2%?
2%. And remember, they only pay online, John, help me if I've got this contrived there, but they only pay online if they collect the fee for the hotel at the time that you reserve it through the online. If you pay for it there, obviously the facility takes the fee and pays the tax on that, as it was too. So that's where that is. So we're up 6.6% from what our county trend line is this is that predate of our tax that just lets us give some index against those good times. So that's pretty good. Here's what it looks like graphically. While it looks like it's a plunge down, we all know December is a plunge down in hotel stays as it is there, but at least it's above last year and the previous. And as you can see there, it's still good from that perspective there. So that's our quick report for you on that, sir. Thank you. If you'd like me just to go right into the One City moment, then we'll just talk about that real fast. For our One City moment, we're going to go back to visit Susan's operation there of Winterfest, and to, the One City moment was there. They were greatly on display there, and there were a lot of One City activities that were taking place during that, as it was. We also want to talk about that, that impediment to the tour that Scott spoke of did cause us all to have a bit of a pause and look at our community in a little bit different way. And particularly, you might not have gotten out to the Memorial Gardens during that time, but we had people that did. And so we just wanted to share with you that about, how reverent and such it still looks like. This is a view from Sturgeon City Park of the not very often frozen over Wilson Bay. And, that was a particular site that I can't recall how many times I've seen that happen as it was, but it's a number, it's got to be slightly more than one. And then this was the out there at the famous lake there that Susan gets to hold credence over, as it was too.
Don't worry about the turtles. Don't worry about turtles. They're okay, everybody.
Glenn, thank you. Thank you. Any comments from the directors?
This is off topic, but I stopped by yesterday morning, 911 Lejeune Boulevard, and spoke with Sam Bright as he was surveying the residue from his 40 years of business there after his store caught fire and burned down. And he could not stop going on about what a job that our people did out there. He said it was phenomenal. I mean, he was really impressed, grateful, appreciative. He was in good spirits, and just gave a glowing report all around.
That is a good thing.
We have a wonderful team. We need to be proud of that. And I really hate it for Mr. Bright. I
He'll be
mean, it's, yeah. Anything else? Chris, welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Gave you a lot of information today, so.
Yes, you did. That's a lot of great information. Those were
We told you you wouldn't be bored.
indeed.
Okay.
You didn't tell him about the test
I
letter?
didn't tell him anything.
I'm ready now.
All right, without any further business, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.